They say the veil thins when the harvest moon dies. Fires crackle over graves, and whispers stir in the smoke. Tonight, we walk where the living and the dead once met beneath the Samhain sky. Join the myth weaver, where forgotten nights still breathe. The air is colder tonight. You can feel it settle, a thin, silver hush over the earth, over the fields that once swayed gold beneath a gentler sun. The harvest is done. The sickles have fallen silent, and what remains is the scent of cut grain, smoke, and the faint sweetness of decay. It is the last breath of autumn, and the first whisper of something older. You walk where the wind carries the hush of another age. Ireland, long before the cities, before the saints, before even the word Halloween had meaning. Back when people looked to the sky and the soil for answers. Back when time itself felt alive. The people called this turning of seasons Samhain, the end of light's half, and the beginning of dark's dominion. Not a holiday, not a celebration, but a crossing, a threshold between worlds. You can almost see them, figures moving through the mist, cloaked in wool, faces pale from the chill. They gather on the high hills, where the air is clean and the ground meets the stars. Children huddle close to their mothers, hands gripping the edges of rough cloaks. Men carry torches bound with straw and pitch. In the distance, fires burn. Not one, but many, spread across the ridges like glowing eyes in the night. This is the end of the year for them. The day when the sun god, Lugh, has fallen silent. When light has grown too weak to protect the living from what lies beyond. And so they honor the dark, not with fear, but with flame. You stand among them now. You can hear the crackle, see the sparks rise and vanish into the fog. The druids move through the crowd, white-robed, faces painted with ash and chalk. Their chants are low, rhythmic, rising and falling like the sea against black cliffs. They speak to the gods of harvest, to Danu, the mother, to the Dagda, the great father, to Morrigan, whose wings are shadow and omen. They ask for protection, for memory, for the return of light after the long winter's sleep. In their hands are bundles of grain, last remnants of the harvest, tied with red thread. In their fires burn bones of cattle, sheep, sometimes even the remains of those who had passed that year. Bonefires, they call them, the origin of the word bonfire. The scent is strange, sharp, sacred, unsettling. You can taste the smoke, feel it cling to your breath. This night is not about death, not exactly. It is about the space between, where death and life share a single breath. The druids believe the veil is thinning, that unseen doors open for a moment. The air quivers with unseen presences. Every flicker of light seems to reveal a shadow, too tall, too still. You imagine faces in the fog, ancestors, travelers, spirits that remember the shape of human love. They do not speak, but you sense their nearness, like a warmth behind the spine. Offerings are left for them, bowls of milk, honey, oat cakes, even a drop of ale. The living step away quietly, never looking back. To glance over one's shoulder is to invite what watches to follow. On the edges of the crowd, young men guard the fires. They say that from these sacred flames, every home will take new light for the winter. Torches are dipped, wrapped in cloth and carried across miles of darkness. A spark of protection for each hearth. You can almost hear the soft crunch of frost beneath their boots, the low murmur of prayers carried by the wind, the rhythm of centuries collapsing into one eternal night. Somewhere in the crowd, someone tells a story of the Aussie, the fair folk, neither good nor evil, who walk freely tonight. They dwell in the mounds and the mist, and tonight they hunger for company. So doors are left slightly open, food left on thresholds, and fires never left to die. For in the silence after midnight, the old songs say, they come to measure the courage of men. You picture them, luminous, pale, ancient as memory, wearing the shape of those long buried. Some called them gods, some called them ghosts, but none dared to say they weren't real. You wander a little farther from the fire, toward the low fields now wrapped in fog. The earth is soft beneath your feet, the smell of peat thick and wet. You hear an owl, a slow, lonely cry, and the sigh of wind through dying reeds. It is here that the old gods waited, they said, nameless now, but never gone, their breath woven into the soil, their gaze hidden in the black water of bogs. You wonder if belief itself is what keeps them dreaming, if the fire is a promise, that even as the year dies, the people remember. Samhain was not only about the spirit world, it was about survival. Crops were counted, herds were culled, the weak slaughtered for meat before the frost claimed them. Death, in a way, was preparation, a ritual of practicality wrapped in reverence. But still, there was fear. For every year, some vanished in these nights, lost to the dark, or to tales older than language. Some said they crossed into the land of the dead by mistake. Others whispered they were chosen, and so each fire burned brighter, not to celebrate, but to keep watch. You return to the circle of flame. The druids' chants have softened now, almost a lullaby. The smoke drifts upward, thick and blue, spiraling toward constellations that have witnessed countless such nights. Someone plays a small wooden flute, a haunting, reedy sound that seems to fold the air. Children have fallen asleep near their mothers, their faces flickering gold and shadow. Even the wind has gentled, as though listening. This night feels endless, and yet it slips by in silence, leaving only ash over fields and a promise whispered in firelight, that what dies will rise again, that the sun will return, that even in the longest dark there is memory. You breathe in deeply. Smoke, wet grass, the faint metallic scent of embers cooling. The fires begin to fade, one by one, until only distant orange dots remain in the hills. The mist thickens, swallowing the shapes of the living, the ghosts, and the gods alike. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster stirs. Morning approaches, though no one speaks of it yet. The veil is closing, slowly, reluctantly. You turn once more to the empty fields. The wind brushes past, as if a voice just out of reach. Perhaps it is only the air, or perhaps it is something that once was human, now passing like smoke between worlds. And so the first dawn after Samhain rises, pale and uncertain. You feel it more than see it. The old year's ashes underfoot, the promise of rebirth hidden beneath frost. The fires may have dimmed, but their warmth lingers in the soil and in the quiet memory that somewhere, beyond sight and season, the gods are still waiting. The mist curls low as the morning breaks. You feel the hush stretch across the fields, ancient, tender, unbroken. Beyond the horizon, another flame waits to be kindled, and as the wind carries the last whisper of ash and prayer, you drift onward, toward the next story. The last light of the sun sinks behind the hills, and the world exhales. What was bright turns shadowed. What was certain begins to shimmer and drift. You can feel it, a trembling in the air, like a breath caught between one heartbeat and the next. The villagers of old Ireland called this moment the thinning, the hour when the veil between worlds weakens, when boundaries blur, and silence becomes something alive. The fields are empty now. The harvest is gone, the fires banked low, yet in every home there is movement. Soft footsteps, murmured blessings, the rustle of straw. Lanterns are being carved, not from pumpkins, not yet, but from turnips, their flesh pale and cold under the knife, each one hollowed, its face cut with trembling care, a grin too wide, or eyes that slant like crescent moons. You watch as the flame is placed inside, a trembling light in a fragile shell. It is not meant to guide, but to warn. For tonight it is said, the dead may walk, not in cruelty, but in longing. You can almost see it. A small cottage by a peat bog, smoke drifting through a thatched roof. Inside, a family gathers near the hearth. Their shadows shiver on the walls. The air smells of burning turf and damp wool. The eldest child pours a little milk into a bowl and places it by the door. Beside it, a piece of bread, still warm from the oven, and a single candle, its light fluttering like a heartbeat. It is an offering, a gesture of remembrance, for the souls of their ancestors will wander tonight, and they must not find the door closed, nor their hunger unmet. The belief is older than words, that the living and the dead, once each year, share the same path for a single night. The druids called them the walkers between, spirits not at rest, drifting through the mists of Samhain like forgotten songs. You imagine them now, not terrifying, not grotesque, but weary. Some appear as they once were, faces half remembered from dreams. Others arrive as flickering shapes, mist with eyes, echo with form. They drift toward the lanterns, toward warmth and scent and prayer. But the old stories warn, not all who come to feed are known. Not all who knock were once loved. Beyond the safety of the fire, the night grows strange. There are footsteps where no one walks, and whispers that never quite form words. The air feels thick, as if the world itself is holding its breath. You hear the creak of wood, a door moving slightly, though no hand touches it. The candlelight bends, stretched thin by something unseen. It is said that if you stare too long, you might see them. A shadow at the edge of the table, a figure just beyond the window's frost. They do not mean harm, most of them. They are drawn by the scent of home, by the sound of their name in a prayer. But there are others, those who died without kindness, without a grave, without a word spoken over their bones. They come too, and their hunger is deeper. To guard against these, people crafted lanterns from the earth itself. Turnips, beets, sometimes skulls of animals. Each light became a sentinel, each face a warning to what walked unseen. The story says a man named Jack once cheated the devil himself and was cursed to wander with only a coal for light. He hollowed his turnip to hold it, and ever since, the jack-o'-lantern became the symbol of the lost, a soul between worlds, forever denied rest. You can see them lined now along the path, grimacing faces glowing through fog. The wind makes their light tremble, as though each were breathing. Inside, the family waits quietly. The youngest child asks in a whisper if their grandmother will come tonight. The mother smiles softly, not answering, not denying. They sit together, the candle between them, the bread untouched. Outside, the wind presses against the shutters. It sounds almost like someone sighing. For hours they listen, the silence stretching thin as silk. And then faintly, the door creaks once. No one moves, no one breathes. They say if you speak in that moment, you invite what waits to answer. So they stay still, 5 shadows around one flickering flame, waiting for the sound to fade. In other villages, the night is louder. Fires burn high on the hills, and people gather to tell stories of spirits seen and tricks played. Masks are worn, crude and wild, to confuse what walks between. For if the dead come seeking warmth, they must not recognize who among the living still breathes. Better to blur one's face, to become no one until dawn. Some laugh and dance, mocking fear to keep it small, but others glance behind their shoulders more than once. In the fields, where no fires burn, something always seems to move. You step outside again, into the breath of that night. The earth smells damp, the grass slick beneath your feet. Lanterns glow faintly along the distant ridge, their lights bobbing like wandering souls. The stars are sharp, the air too still. Every sound feels close, a branch breaking, a whisper rising from nowhere. You wonder what it must have felt like to truly believe the dead could return, to feel their presence not as terror, but as memory, as love. And yet love and fear are never far apart. Perhaps that's what kept the lights burning. The night deepens. Frost gathers at the edges of the door. Inside, the candle burns lower, its flame curling into blue. The offerings remain untouched, though the milk has cooled and the bread is hardening in the air. The mother finally stands, moving to close the door. For a moment she pauses, listening, and faintly, through the stillness comes the sound of a sigh. Or maybe it is only the wind, curling through the cracks of an old house. She bows her head once and whispers something too soft to catch. Then she shuts the door. When morning comes, the world feels hollowed, quiet in a different way. The lanterns are dim, their faces scorched with soot. The milk bowl is empty now, though no one remembers drinking it. The bread has vanished. Children laugh, but their parents do not ask how. For such nights are not meant to be understood, only honored. You walk once more across the cold fields, feeling the weight of centuries beneath your steps. Somewhere, far back in time, someone lit a light for you too. A small flame to guide you home, should you ever drift between worlds. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is why we still light them, not to frighten the dead, but to remind them, and ourselves, that the door is never fully closed. The turnip light fades, its ember sinking into fog. The last smoke of Samhain rises toward a pale dawn. You feel it now, the hush between breaths, the promise of return. And as you drift into silence, another fire begins to whisper in the distance. The wind comes first. It slides through the hollows of the hills, sharp as breath, drawn in fear. It moves the grass, the smoke, the hearts of those who still wake beneath the Samhain moon. You stand at the edge of the village, watching firelight leap between stones. The flames hiss and twist, throwing sparks that drift like lost stars into the dark. Around you, the night feels alive, whispering, shifting, watching. They say that when the veil thins, even the ground beneath your feet forgets which world it belongs to. And so, the people learned to trick the dark. Children move first, barefoot, wild-eyed, cloaked in sheepskin and soot. Their laughter is high and strange, half joy, half fear. They dance between bonfires built on the high ridges, leaping through the smoke to cleanse themselves of what the year carried. Ash clings to their skin, their breath rises in clouds of white. The flames crack and roar, casting long shadows that stretch and sway like other beings, the kind that might not leave when the music ends. So the villagers wear masks. You watch as they are made, from bark, from hide, from woven straw and cloth, faces that do not belong to anyone. Half human, half something else. The smell of tallow and burnt wood fills the air. Hands work quickly by torchlight, cutting, shaping, tying. Each mask a barrier, a disguise, a prayer. Some are monstrous, teeth carved from bone, eyes painted black as the new moon. Others are simple, a hollowed gourd, a veil of reeds, a strip of fur tied with thread. To wear another's face, they believed, was to confuse the spirits who wandered in search of life. If the dead could not recognize you, they would pass you by. You step closer to the firelight, and the faces turn toward you. Not faces anymore, but something in between. Children, yes, but transformed. They shout names that are not their own, call to the shadows as though daring them to answer. It is a strange play, half ritual, half rebellion. Even the elders watch from doorways, smiling with something like relief. Because if the children can mock the darkness, perhaps it cannot swallow them whole. The druids say this masking began long before memory, a tradition born from fear and respect. The dead, they believed, were not malicious, only lost. But in the confusion of Samhain, some spirits might envy the living, might follow them home, might take what warmth remained in their bodies. So you become unrecognizable, a shifting soul among shifting souls, and yet, as the hours stretch thin and the fires burn lower, the masks begin to take on a life of their own. A child, hidden behind an oxhide mask, walks too close to the edge of the dark. His torch flutters out. He laughs at first, then stops. From the shadow beyond, something answers. A breath, a whisper, a sound like his own laughter echoed back, but hollowed, wrong. He runs. The others follow, their masks bobbing and swaying like ghosts unchained. When they reach the safety of the fire again, the adults draw them close. They speak no word of what was heard, but the mask, when lifted, feels heavier now, as though it remembers. As night deepens, the villagers feast. Meat roasted over flame, bread shared and torn, cups of ale passed hand to hand. The masks remain on, even while they eat, as if removing them might draw attention. It is a sight both strange and beautiful, a circle of faces that are not faces, lit by fire that does not distinguish life from death. Music rises, the drone of a flute, the slow beat of a drum carved from hide. Bodies move, swaying, twisting, circling the flames. Each step is both ritual and release. They are celebrating and surviving at once. Somewhere beyond the fields, where the mist thickens into walls, you feel eyes watching, the old gods, perhaps, or the Aossi, the fair ones who walk freely this night. They must be pleased, you think, to see their stories remembered in motion, to see the living still bow, still burn, still dance. But the thought lingers. How many of these masks will be taken off come dawn? And how many will cling, refusing to release the soul beneath? The fire burns low. Ash drifts upward like slow snow. The laughter quiets. A woman removes her mask. Beneath it, her face seems older somehow, as though the night itself had pressed its weight upon her skin. She drops the mask into the fire. It blackens, curls, becomes smoke. Others follow. A ritual of release. A way to tell the unseen, we have survived another turning, but some hold on to theirs. Not in defiance, but in silence. Perhaps they felt something while wearing them. A presence that was not entirely gone when the mask came off. Perhaps it was comfort. Perhaps it was warning. Legends say a few forgot to remove them. That when morning came, their faces had changed beneath the skin. No longer human. No longer spirit. Something in between. Marked by the night forever. You walk now among the embers, where only smoke and footsteps remain. The masks lie scattered, half burned, half whole. You pick one up, a crude shape of bark and string. It smells of sweat and ash and something ancient. When you lift it toward your face, you feel the faintest pulse of warmth, as if someone once alive still lingers there, waiting for another chance to wear it. You lower it again. The wind sighs, moving through the blackened grass. The fire hums low, its last ember glimmering red against the dark. They called it a night of reversal, when the world forgot its order, when the living pretended to be dead so the dead might forget to take them. And maybe, in the years since, nothing has truly changed. Our masks have become prettier, painted, smiling, lit with electric flame. But still, every October we become someone else for a night. Still, we hide behind faces not our own. Still we laugh into the dark, hoping it laughs back gently. The fires fade to embers, and the masks collapse into ash. Somewhere beyond the mist, a whisper lingers. Not of fear, but of remembrance. As dawn rises over the cold fields, you feel the last mask slip away, and the silence between worlds waiting once more to open. The Empire arrived with banners, brass, and the illusion of control. They brought laws, language, and gods carved from white stone. But on this island, the earth already had its own names for things. Names whispered in bog water, in standing stones, in the mouths of druids who never bowed. And when the Roman torches came, they found a fire that refused to die. At first it was a clash of calendars. The Romans honored their dead in Feralia, a somber week of offerings for the shades who lingered below. They left crumbs of bread and salt at graves, poured wine into the soil to soothe restless spirits. But here, in the misty reaches of the Celtic North, the boundaries of life and death were not comforted by wine. They were courted with fire, mocked with masks, invited with songs that no Latin priest could translate. So the Empire did what empires do best. They absorbed, they renamed, they borrowed the fire and called it their own. When Samhain came, they folded it into their Pomona's Day, a harvest feast for the goddess of orchards. Apples, her sacred fruit, floated in water bowls, their round skins reflecting candlelight. To the Romans, it was a game of fortune and fertility. To the Celts, it was still a ritual. The surface of the water a mirror between worlds. Two faiths met in that reflection, neither one entirely surrendering. Imagine a Roman centurion standing at the edge of a bonfire, his armor glinting, his hand trembling from cold or fear. He cannot say which. Behind him, villagers in animal hides chant in a language older than his empire's walls. The fire dances on their faces, and for a moment, he swears he sees the shapes of other figures in the smoke. Figures too tall, too thin, too patient. He tightens his grip on the torch, because even conquest has limits, and the unseen does not kneel. The Romans, for all their discipline, believed deeply in signs, in omens, in the whispers of the dead through dreams. So when their soldiers began reporting shadows moving through campfires, or voices calling their names from empty fields, the priests took notice. Local superstition, they called it, and yet quietly, they lit more torches. They kept offerings of fruit at their doorsteps. They wore charms carved from rowan wood, a Celtic protection against spirits they claimed not to believe in. It is easy to mock another's gods until your own lamps begin to flicker. That is how Rome changed, not through victory, but through slow, smoky absorption. Pomona's sweetness wrapped itself around Samhain's ash, the goddess of fruit and fertility, began to look less like a Roman statue and more like a figure carved in apple wood. Wild-haired, with eyes that knew winter's cruelty, and Feralia, the Day of the Dead, did not vanish. It simply moved, sliding its bones beneath the Celtic soil, becoming one more thread in the woven night of Samhain. Every year the celebrations mingled more. Roman children bobbed for apples, believing the first to catch one would be first to marry. Celtic children wore masks of bark and fur, believing the first to be recognized by the spirits would never wake again. They laughed together, but their laughter meant different things. One laughed for luck, the other for protection. And in that mingling, a new festival began to take shape, half Roman, half wild, sacred to both fruit and fire. There are records, faint and disputed, of priests writing to Rome, uneasy. They spoke of festivals, unclean and mixed, of villagers refusing to surrender their fires to the gods of the empire. They warned that the border between the holy and the haunted was being lost, and perhaps it was, because on this island, faith was not a structure of stone. It was mist and blood and memory. It seeped into conquerors as quietly as fog. When the empire finally crumbled, its statues cracked and roads broke apart. But some things endured, not in marble, but in custom. Pomona's apples rolled into the hearth of Samhain. Feralia's mourning merged with laughter by firelight. What had once been a Roman prayer became a Celtic charm. The languages twisted together like roots beneath the same soil. No one remembered where one god ended and another began. And in that confusion, something powerful was born. The idea that death could be celebrated. That remembrance did not have to mean sorrow. That the veil between worlds could open not just for mourning, but for communion. It was no longer about empire or tribe. It was about the shared fear of being forgotten. And so, even Rome's cold efficiency softened. Its people, once obsessed with order, learned to honor chaos. The beautiful, terrifying blur of boundaries. They had borrowed the Celts' flames, and the flames, in turn, borrowed them. The apple remained, bright, round, red as blood, a token passed from goddess to ghost. When a Roman hand tossed it into the air, a Celtic wind caught it. When a druid whispered to the fire, a Roman tongue gave it new shape. And over centuries, those words, those fires, would travel further still, changing names but never meaning. Now when we bob for apples, we echo Pomona. When we light candles for the dead, we echo Feralia. And when we gather beneath dark skies in late October, wearing masks and lighting fires, we echo Samhain, the island's old, defiant heartbeat. Rome conquered the world, but on that small, misty island, it found something it could not command. A ritual older than empire, a night where gods shared faces, and even conquerors learned to fear the dark. The torches dim, the scent of apples and ash lingers in the night air. Somewhere, the old names of gods still murmur through the smoke. Not Roman, not Celtic, but something born between them. The flames that once marked conquest now mark remembrance. And history itself, like fire, forgets who lit it first. The centuries turned, and the empire's banners sank beneath moss and memory. But the fire, the one the Celts had lit for Samhain, never truly went out. It smoldered quietly beneath new altars, beneath new names, waiting for night to fall again. You are walking through a medieval village now. Stone cottages lean toward one another, their thatched roofs trembling in the wind. The air smells of wax and wet earth. Somewhere, a church bell tolls, slow solemn, endless. Each note climbs into the fog like a prayer for those who never returned. This is no longer the age of druids or Caesars. This is the age of saints and shadows. By now the church has reached every shore. The priests wear robes instead of furs, and Latin replaces the language of the stones. But even they cannot escape the strange rhythm of the seasons, the pulse of the dying year. The harvest is still over. The air is still sharp and sweet, and people still whisper that the dead walk when the days grow short. Only now they have new words for it. All Hallows Eve, a night to remember not monsters but the holy departed. The Pope in Rome declared it centuries earlier, a day of sanctity to wash away the memory of older fires. All Saints' Day for the martyrs, All Souls' Day for the rest, 2 days of mercy to replace a night of fear. But on the island, on the northern moors, and in the lonely glens, people knew better. They lit candles not only for the saints, but for the souls who still wandered, for ancestors, for lovers, for the nameless and forgotten, because mercy and memory are not the same thing. Imagine standing in that twilight, a mother setting a single candle on her windowsill, its flame trembling in the cold. She whispers her child's name, the one who did not survive the last winter. The candlelight is a small defiance, a promise to the darkness that he is remembered. She crosses herself, but her eyes glance toward the hill beyond the churchyard, where once, long ago, fires had burned for Samhain. She does not speak of it, but she remembers. Across Europe, the rituals shift and shimmer, wearing the language of salvation but the shape of older rites. In France, children go door to door asking for soul cakes, small rounds of bread baked for the dead. Each cake eaten, they say, frees one spirit from purgatory. In Ireland, they do the same, knocking on doors, murmuring blessings, carrying lanterns made from hollowed turnips. The light inside, they claim, guides lost souls home. In truth, those lanterns are something far older, echoes of the fires that once guarded Samhain's borders, now blessed with a cross instead of a rune, but burning all the same. The church tolerated these things because faith, once lit, cannot be easily contained. Better to guide it than to fight it, better to drape the old bones in new vestments. And so the old gods found sanctuary inside the saints. Brigid, once the Celtic goddess of the forge and flame, became Saint Brigid, patroness of poets and midwives. The people still lit her fires, but now they called them holy. The line between sacred and forbidden grew soft as candle wax. Everywhere, light became the bridge. Candles for souls, lanterns for the lost, bonfires for the villages that could not afford the church's gold. The faithful prayed for heaven, but in the corner of their minds, they still heard whispers of the earth, of those who never left it. Priests preached salvation. Peasants still left milk on doorsteps, and in the quiet hours before dawn, you could almost see the flicker of something ancient moving between the graves. The medieval world was never fully at peace with itself. It was a world of duality, of psalms and superstition, of cathedrals built over burial mounds. Every act of faith carried the shadow of older fear, and so, on All Hallows' Eve, villagers prayed for the saints in the chapel by day, and whispered to the spirits at their hearths by night. One hand clutched the rosary, the other still scattered grain for unseen guests. In their hearts, they were both Christian and ancient, two truths tangled in the same flame. By the 12th century, the bells of All Hallows had become a sound of comfort. They rang through fog and frost, each chime a reminder that death was not an ending, only a crossing. Children carried small lanterns from door to door, their faces pale in the candlelight, singing soft rhymes for the souls in limbo. A soul cake, they would whisper. Pray you, good mistress, a soul cake. And in those small voices, you can still hear echoes of Samhain's old chorus. The songs once sung to trick the dead into mercy. But not every soul was kind. The church's stories told of purgatory spirits, half bound to earth, drawn to the warmth of light and prayer. Some returned out of longing, some out of hunger. And so the candles in windows burned all night, not just to guide the good, but to keep the others at bay, a trembling glow between salvation and shadow. You stand there now, beneath a sky heavy with mist, beneath the ringing of distant bells. The world feels suspended, caught between two breaths. You can smell tallow and smoke, hear footsteps crunching on frosted grass. Each candle flickers like a heartbeat. This is All Hallows' Eve, a night of mercy, wrapped around an older fear. A night when even heaven seems to lean closer, listening for forgotten names, and somewhere beyond the reach of the church's light. On a lonely hill, someone still tends a fire. The flames move like a language the world once spoke, and the wind carries faint laughter. Not cruel, not kind, just familiar. The old fires still burn, hidden beneath hymns, carried in the hands of those who refuse to forget. The villagers below cross themselves when the wind changes. They say a prayer, they close their shutters, but for a moment, the line between saint and spirit blurs again. The fire answers the bell. The shadow answers the prayer, and both, for a heartbeat, speak the same word. Remember. The bells fade into the fog. Candles gutter, one by one, until only a single flame remains. A small trembling echo of all that came before. It burns not for fear, but for continuity, for the idea that light, once kindled, is never truly lost. And beyond that flame, in the hush before dawn, something ancient stirs, waiting for the next name to be spoken. You walk through narrow streets where the fog seems to breathe. The air tastes of soot and cider, and the stones underfoot are slick with rain. Lanterns flicker like trembling hearts. Somewhere, a door creaks open, then shuts quickly, as if it fears to be seen. This is Europe in the late Middle Ages, a world of hunger, candlelight, and superstition, a world that still remembers its dead. By now, the old fires of Samhain have been softened by centuries of faith and famine. The church blesses the night, but the people make it their own. What was once holy lament becomes a ritual of survival. In villages across Ireland, Scotland, and England, children and beggars roam the lanes on All Hallows' Eve. They carry turnip lanterns carved into crude faces, their hollow eyes glowing with ember light. They knock on doors, calling softly into the wind. A soul cake, pray you, good mistress, a soul cake. The rhythm is part prayer, part demand. For each cake given, they promise a blessing for the family's dead. For each refusal, well, some say the dead remember that. Too, you can see them now, in the candlelit mist. A cluster of children wrapped in patched cloaks, their faces smudged with soot, their laughter echoing against stone walls. They move between houses like spirits themselves, half play, half penance. Some sing, some whisper, some simply wait, eyes glowing through the holes of their crude masks. At the last house, the door does not open. The children wait. The wind groans. Someone laughs, a sound too hollow, too long. And when morning comes, the door bears a mark of ash. No one speaks of it. The practice spreads across countries. changing names but not intent. In Ireland, it's souling, begging for food in the name of the departed. In Scotland, it's guising, disguising oneself from the spirits who walk tonight. And in England, it becomes mumming, where laughter and fear share the same mask. Everywhere, the ritual walks the thin line between devotion and mischief. Imagine a cobblestone courtyard in Yorkshire, the year 1450. A group of boys stand around a dying fire. One holds a lantern made from a hollow turnip, its grin jagged and cruel. Another wears a cloak of torn cloth, pretending to be death himself. They sing, not quite in tune. A soul, a soul, a soul for a cake. A woman appears at her door with trembling hands, offering a crust of bread and a whispered blessing. They bow, but their laughter follows her back inside. The moment she closes the door, they smudge the threshold with soot, a childish prank, a small echo of something darker. Because beneath the laughter, the old fear still lingers. The belief that spirits walk this night, and that mocking them keeps them at bay, wear their faces, speak their names, and maybe they'll mistake you for one of their own. The laughter becomes a spell, the mischief a charm. And if a lantern burns low, or a child's voice cracks mid-song, someone will always whisper, "Don't let the flame die. They're watching." Sometimes the tricks go too far. A farmer finds his barn door unlatched, his cows turned loose into the mist. A widow wakes to find her gate tied shut from the outside. A preacher discovers a turnip lantern left at the foot of the pulpit, its grin wide and knowing. The next Sunday, he preaches against the devil's laughter. But the children still go out the next year, because hunger cannot be exorcised, and fear makes fine company when the nights grow long. Over time, the jesters and beggars begin to blur together. Grown men join the games, wearing painted faces and carrying torches. They dance through the streets, knocking on doors, chanting verses that twist between prayer and curse. A penny for the souls, a drop for the cold. Open your door, lest your luck grow old. A rhyme that began as a blessing now carries a threat beneath its breath. The sacred has turned sly. The mask smiles, but the eyes behind it no longer do. Even the church cannot quite contain it. Priests light candles for the saints, while villagers light bonfires on the edge of town. Both claim to drive away the dark. Both know the dark will always return. Some say that in certain villages, the poorest of the poor were chosen to walk the lanes all night, collecting food and drink for the souls. They were called night souls, their faces hidden, their footsteps uncounted. No one saw them in daylight, and if one knocked on your door after midnight, you did not refuse. To do so meant bad luck, or worse, bad company in the months to come. The trick, the treat, the bargain. It was always the same ancient rhythm. You give or you lose. You share or you're shunned by both living and dead. And the laughter that fills the night, it isn't cruelty, it's nervousness turned a ritual. It's the sound of people pretending not to fear what still walks beside them. In the taverns, the adults join in their own way. They light torches, drink cider sweetened with ash and spice, and tell stories of the night fire, the wandering flame that appears on lonely paths. Some say it's a spirit's lantern, luring travelers to the bogs. Others say it's the soul of one who refused to give on All Hallows' Eve, forever doomed to wander, a flicker of hunger in the mist. Children swear they've seen it, a pale light floating over the fields, laughing softly like something human, but not quite. The night becomes a mirror, each prank, each laugh, each candle, a reflection of the same truth. people need the dark to know they are alive. They need something to fear, something to feed, something to remember, and so they keep the knocking, the disguises, the hollow turnips with their grinning mouths. They keep the jest alive, even when they no longer remember the prayer behind it. By the time dawn stains the rooftops, the streets are littered with wax drippings and breadcrumbs. The fires are out, but a few embers still smolder in the gutters. Children sleep, faces smudged, pockets full of crusts. Their laughter lingers in the cold, like breath on glass. Somewhere, a door creaks again. A single knock echoes through the morning fog. Too early, too slow, no one answers. When the woman inside finally opens it, she finds a single turnip lantern, its grin still glowing faintly, as if the night forgot to leave. The laughter fades, but the echo of knocking remains. Steady, patient, familiar. Every flame goes out, but something always remembers where it burned. In the ashes of mischief lies a whisper. Give and be spared. And so the old bargain endures, waiting for the next hand to open the door. The sea is wide tonight, black as ink, cold as iron. Waves rise and fall like the breathing of something ancient, and in the dark holds of creaking ships, families cradle candles to keep the wind from swallowing their flame. They are leaving famine, leaving faith, leaving everything but memory, and tucked in that memory, beneath woolen bread and whispered prayers, they carry their rituals, not treasures of gold or relics of empire, but stories, songs, and a handful of ways to keep the dead from feeling forgotten. You stand on the deck with them. Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English, a patchwork of tongues and grief, their eyes fixed on the horizon where the old world disappears. Someone hums a hymn, someone else hums something older, a melody that once circled a Samhain fire. The two songs overlap, and for a moment, the ocean itself seems to listen. Weeks later, the ships reach a jagged coastline, the edge of a new continent, where forests hum in strange languages and the sky feels too large, too bright. They land with nothing but their memories and their hope. And when the harvest season comes, as it always must, they find themselves longing for the warmth of the old festivals, for the fires, the songs, the masks. But there are no turnips here. The soil yields something else instead. Pumpkins, heavy and hollow, glowing from within like small suns. The people smile. The ritual will live again, just in a new shape. So they hollow them out, carving faces not quite friendly, not quite cruel. The knife scrapes flesh. The smell of pumpkin fills the air, a scent sweet and damp, as if autumn itself has a heartbeat. Inside, they place a candle, and when the first one flickers alive, it feels as if the old gods have crossed the sea after all. Children gather around the orange glow. They laugh, they whisper, they tell stories of a spirit that roams with a lantern, a lost soul seeking a resting place. They call him Jack of the Lantern, Jack-o'-lantern. In Ireland, Jack was a trickster, a man who cheated the devil and earned neither heaven nor hell. Doomed to wander the dark, he carried only a coal from hell's fire, trapped in a hollow turnip to light his way. But here, in this new land, Jack finds a new home. His turnip becomes a pumpkin, his curse becomes tradition, and the people, haunted yet hopeful, keep his lanterns burning every autumn night. The ritual spreads quietly at first, a comfort among the immigrants who still speak of the old country. They gather in wooden farmhouses, telling tales of restless spirits and fading harvests. In the flicker of those pumpkin lights, the old words mix with new ones. Samhain becomes All Hallows Evening, then simply Halloween. a word that drifts across lips like smoke. The meaning changes, but the rhythm remains. Imagine a village in New England, 1850. The harvest moon hangs low. Fields whisper in the chill wind, and from every porch, a pumpkin glows. Inside, families share cider and bread. The parents whisper prayers for the dead. The children run laughing into the dark, carrying their lanterns high like glowing hearts. Each flame is a promise, a light for those who crossed before, and perhaps a warning for what still lingers unseen. The native peoples of these lands watch the customs unfold, their own stories echoing with similar ghosts. They too honor the dead with food and fire. They too believe the veil grows thin when the leaves turn red. And so, slowly, the rituals begin to braid together. Not as conquest, but as conversation. Apples bob in water, as they once did for Pomona. Pumpkins gleam where turnips once guarded the door. Candles flicker for saints, for spirits, for anyone who remembers. The Atlantic, it seems, cannot drown a tradition. It only transforms it. In the cities, the festival becomes wilder. Children carve more faces. Teenagers roam the alleys, playing tricks that feel older than they are. The laughter grows louder. But in the quiet moments, when the candles burn low, a faint unease still lingers. Every flame, after all, still remembers why it was lit. By the late 19th century, Halloween becomes something new. Immigrant families pass it to neighbors. Neighbors teach it to their children. It becomes American, a night of masks and mischief, but still carrying whispers of the other world. Newspapers print warnings about ghosts and fire safety in the same breath. Pumpkins fill shop windows, grinning their orange smiles, and the old songs, once prayers, become playground chants. What was sacred becomes playful. What was feared becomes fun. But beneath the laughter, you can still hear the sea. You imagine those early families gathered by their firesides, pumpkins glowing in the corners like gentle sentinels. They tell stories of the lands they left behind, of mist and stone and voices in the hills. Outside, the night deepens. The fields sigh. The stars look down on a ritual reborn. They do not know it yet, but these small gatherings will seed something vast. A festival that crosses continents, a night where memory wears a smile. And perhaps, if you listen closely, you can still hear the Atlantic whispering to the lanterns. The waves murmur like a long echo. Carry the flame. Do not forget. Because every candle lit on Halloween is a continuation of that voyage. A small light braving the sea of darkness. The spirits have changed names. The prayers have changed words. But the purpose remains. To guide, to honor, to remember. Now pumpkins glow on every doorstep. Children masked and laughing wander streets built where wild forests once stood. They don't know the names of the ones who carved before them, but their footsteps still follow the same rhythm. A procession of the living walking briefly with the dead. The Atlantic wind still blows across them all, soft as breath, cold as memory, and far away, on a forgotten shore, some old fire flares one last time, as if answering the glow of the pumpkins. The ritual endures. The light endures. The waves hush. The lanterns sway. Pumpkin light spills across porches and windows, as gentle as moonfire, as fragile as remembrance. Across centuries and oceans, the same flame passes from hand to hand. From turnip to pumpkin, from Europe to America, from prayer to play, and somewhere in the deep night, beneath stars that have watched it all, a single whisper drift over the sea. We are still here. The tale begins in the kind of place that forgets to mark itself on maps. A crossroads pub somewhere in the misted countryside of Ireland. The fire crackles low, ale spills freely, and every shadow on the wall looks just a little too alive. It's here that Jack earns his name, not for his kindness, nor his charm, but for his cleverness, the kind that always cuts both ways. They call him Stingy Jack, because no one ever saw him buy a drink, and no trick ever found its way past him. Not even one whispered from the dark. One autumn night, as the story goes, Jack sits alone at his table, half drunk, half daring the world to outwit him. The door creaks open, though no wind stirs. The room grows colder, the candles dim, and in steps a stranger. He's dressed in black from head to boot, his smile sharp as broken glass. He orders a drink, but when the innkeeper asks for payment, he only laughs. Jack recognizes that laugh. He's heard it in the stories told to frighten children, the laugh of the devil himself. But Jack, being Jack, does not run. He grins. If it's my soul you've come for, he says, you might as well buy me one last drink before you take it. The devil, amused, agrees. A drink for a soul. Fair trade, he thinks. But when the time comes to pay, Jack pats his empty pockets and sighs. Tell you what, he says slyly. Why don't you turn yourself into a coin, and I'll pay the barkeep proper. When he's not looking, you can turn back again. The devil, ever vain, agrees. With a flash of smoke and brimstone, he becomes a silver coin. Jack snatches it up, but instead of handing it over, he slips the coin into his pocket, right beside a crucifix. The devil screams, trapped, his power bound by the mark of the cross. Jack smiles, sipping the drink the devil bought him, and for the first time in his long, miserable life, he feels cleverer than death itself. When he finally releases the devil, Jack makes him promise 1 year's freedom, no soul-claiming, no tricks. The devil, furious but bound by word, agrees, and so Jack lives another year, drinks another drink, tells the story a dozen times, each one wilder than the last. But pride has a habit of calling back what it mocks. A year passes, the leaves turn again, and Jack finds himself walking the same road, under a sky the color of burnt iron. The devil appears once more, this time in no mood for games. Your time's up, Jack. Jack nods. Fair's fair, he says. But before I go, how about one last meal from that apple tree? He gestures toward a gnarled tree beside the road. The devil sighs, climbs up, and as soon as he does, Jack carves a cross into the bark. Once again, the devil is trapped, and once again, Jack bargains, this time for 10 years of peace. The devil, humiliated, agrees. When he's free, his eyes burn brighter than hellfire. Next time, there will be no tricks. Jack only grins. There's always a trick, but there isn't. Not this time. Years pass. Jack grows old. His cleverness sours into loneliness. And one cold morning, his heart gives out on the same road where he once fooled the devil. When Jack's soul drifts upward, he knocks on heaven's gate. But St. Peter shakes his head. No place here for a man who bartered with demons. So Jack turns downward. The devil meets him at the gate of hell, smiling wide, his revenge complete. But even the devil must honor his word. He promised never to claim Jack's soul, so he refuses him entry. You can't come in, he says, but you won't go unpunished. Then with a flick of his hand, the devil tosses Jack a single ember, plucked from hell's fire. Take this to light your way, he sneers, and wander forever. Jack hollows out a turnip, places the ember inside, and begins his endless walk. a ghost of his own making. His faint glow bobbing through the mist, farmers passing by on cold nights claim to see it from afar. A small, flickering light moving between the hedges. Neither man nor spirit, neither blessed nor damned. They call it Jack's lantern. And when the wind moans across the fields, some swear it carries laughter, thin, mocking, and familiar. Centuries later, the tale travels west with those who carried the old festivals across the sea. The turnip becomes a pumpkin, and the ember becomes a candle. Children carve faces into the orange flesh, smiling, sneering, grinning wide. They say it's for fun. They say it's to keep away ghosts, but they don't always know why. In truth, each jack-o'-lantern is a warning. Cleverness has a cost. Every bargain with darkness burns, even if only as a joke. In the glow of those candles, the story twists into new forms. Some say the lanterns guide lost souls home. Others whisper they confuse the devil, keeping him wandering until dawn. But always, beneath the laughter, the echo of Jack's bargain lingers. A reminder that every flame owes its light to shadow. Imagine it now. A porch somewhere in small-town America. Pumpkin faces flickering in the October dark. Children in masks dart between houses, their laughter mingling with the rustle of dry leaves. And somewhere in that noise, if you listen closely, you might hear a faint sound. A coin spinning on wood, a devil's laugh in the wind, a trick older than time. The pumpkins grin on, as if they know something we've forgotten. Jack's tale endures because it speaks to something ancient in us. That hunger to cheat death, to outwit the dark, to believe we can play with fire and never burn. But the old storytellers knew better. They said the flame inside every jack-o'-lantern is not just a light against the night, but a soul reminding us that every trick costs something. And when the last candle gutters out, when the smoke curls upward like a ghost's sigh, the bargain feels closer than ever. The road stretches on forever, lit by a single trembling flame in a hollowed shell. Wind howls through hedges, and somewhere far away, a door slams against the dark. Jack walks on, always walking. His laughter fades, his light flickers, but every autumn, when we carve our grinning faces and light the orange lanterns, the world remembers him. The devil's bargain never ended. It only changed hands. The old fires are gone now. No smoke rises over the hills. No druid chants mingle with the cries of crows. In their place, porch lights hum. Street lamps bloom like captured stars. The fire of the gods, once sacred and wild, now burns behind glass and wire. But even here, beneath this hum of civilization, something ancient still stirs. You can almost feel it. A low vibration beneath the laughter, a whisper beneath the music of candy wrappers and plastic wings. The night has changed its mask, but it never forgot its face. You stand at the edge of a suburban street. Leaves skitter along the pavement like dry whispers. The air smells of caramel, candle smoke, and the faint bite of cold. Children pass in flurries, witches and vampires, astronauts and monsters, faces hidden beneath store-bought smiles. They don't know that the masks they wear echo the oldest defense humanity ever knew. Once, hides of beasts and ashes marked the living from the dead. Now latex and fabric serve the same secret spell. The shape shifts, the meaning endures. Each plastic grin, each painted wound is a ritual forgotten yet repeated. A charm passed from hand to hand until no one remembers where it began. In the early days of modern Halloween, around the turn of the 20th century, the festival crossed an invisible bridge. From rural hearth to electric street, immigrants brought their old ghosts with them, The hollowed lanterns, the tricks, the treats. But America, with its boundless appetite for reinvention, fed the spirits new names, new rituals, new myths. Newspapers of the 1920s speak of parties, of bobbing for apples, of masquerades that danced between harvest joy and haunted thrill. In town squares, where once a single bonfire would burn, now dozens of windows flickered, each one a private shrine of light and laughter. The gods were gone. The saints had quieted, but the night still wanted its due. You walk further down the street. The night is thick with color: orange, violet, black. Paper skeletons swing from porches. Plastic bats twist in the wind. Every door offers sweetness for surrender, a small offering to the spirits of childhood. But beneath the sugar lies the same old exchange, a pact between fear and joy. In the past, they gave bread and milk to keep ghosts away. Now it's candy dropped into open hands. The spell still holds. Appease the wanderers, feed the ones who come knocking, and maybe they'll pass you by. The laughter of children becomes the chant, and neon becomes the new fire. Humanity no longer fears the dark, but it has learned never to forget it. Inside one of these bright suburban homes, a pumpkin glows in the window. Its smile, carved wide and jagged, mirrors the old turnips of Ireland. Lanterns meant to keep Jack and his kind at bay. Electric bulbs now replace the candle's trembling flame. But the symbol endures. Light inside the hollow, hope inside the void. Parents tell stories with a wink, turning terror into tradition. Children listen, their small hearts balanced between delight and dread. And though they may forget the names, Samhain, Pomona, All Hallows, their bodies remember. The thrill, the chill, the unspoken sense that tonight the world is thinner. In cities, parades now march through asphalt canyons. Costumed crowds flood the streets, a modern echo of medieval mummers and soulers. Each face becomes a shifting mask of history, half parody, half invocation. The witch, once feared and hunted, now walks freely under streetlight glow. Her pointed hat, not a mark of exile, but of empowerment. The devil dances on TV screens, transformed from a shadowed curse into playful mischief. What was once whispered in fear now sings in neon and laughter. But even as we laugh, somewhere inside, we know the old pattern remains. We still walk between two worlds, the one of flesh and the one of memory. Listen closely. Beneath the thrum of passing cars, beneath the hum of a porch light left on too long, you might hear it, a different sound, a faint echo of the old chant rising from the soil. For one night, each year, the boundaries loosen. The forgotten ones walk softly between us, and we, busy with cameras and costumes, mistake them for tricks of the eye. A shadow beside a lamppost, a chill on an empty street, a knock when no one stands at the door. The night remembers, even if we do not. There is beauty in this forgetting. For Halloween, in its modern disguise, is not the death of the old ways, but their survival through transformation. The fire has not gone out. It has simply changed color. The bonfire became the bulb. The sacrifice became the treat. The spirit mask became a costume from a store aisle, and yet the purpose is the same: to face the darkness, to honor it, to laugh at it, and by doing so, to survive another winter. Imagine the world seen from above on October's last night. From space, the cities shimmer, tiny fires scattered across the dark curve of the earth, each one a spark of the ancient flame, reborn through glass, wire, and human joy. Children carry flashlights instead of torches. Parents carry memory instead of fear. But every light, every flicker, is a continuation of the old vow. To keep the night at bay, and to remember what it once meant to tremble. You pause at the end of the street. The last trick-or-treaters fade into the distance, their laughter softening to murmurs. A breeze lifts dead leaves around your feet. The smell of candle wax, melting plastic, and damp earth fills the air. You think of the fires that once burned on these same lands, when the stars were clearer and the darkness deeper. You realize the ritual was never lost, only rewritten, only disguised. The masks are lighter now, the fear more playful, but the dance remains. We still walk the line between worlds. Only now, we carry our own light. The wind hushes, a porch light flickers, as if remembering flame. Somewhere far off, a child's laughter drifts and fades. In the distance, beyond the glow of street lamps, something older breathes. The same darkness that watched the druids, that whispered to Jack, that still waits for its turn to rise. Electric or ember, neon or moonlight, the night knows your name, and it smiles, softly, behind 1,000 glowing masks. Midnight comes quietly, the way frost gathers on windows or the tide creeps over sleeping sand. The laughter has faded now. The costumes hang forgotten in the hallway. The candy bowls sit half empty, their sweetness turned faintly stale. But outside, the night is still awake. It breathes. It listens, somewhere between the last porch light and the first stretch of open dark. Something stirs, not seen, but known. The old ones used to say this hour was hollow, a space between one world and the next, when the veil grew thin enough for memory to pass through. And if you stand still enough, if you let your own breathing quiet, you might feel it too. The slow heartbeat of the world turning once more into its darker half. The ancients called this turning Samhain, the hinge of the year, where the warm and cold meet in quiet exchange. For them, this was not an ending, but a threshold. The harvest was gathered, the animals drawn in from the fields, the fires banked for the long sleep of winter. Death was not a stranger, it was a guest. They left doors unlatched, candles burning. In windows, food upon the hearthstone, so the spirits might find their way home. They spoke not of ghosts, but of kin returned, drawn by the smell of earth and smoke and memory. Now, centuries later, we still light candles in the dark. We still open the door, though we tell ourselves it's for costumed strangers, not wandering souls. But the old pattern remains, woven deep into the rhythm of the night. Outside, the wind shifts. It carries the scent of damp leaves, of soil just beginning to freeze, of something faintly metallic, like time itself. The world feels different after midnight, hollow, echoing, as if it has exhaled and forgotten to breathe again. You walk through it quietly, past houses now asleep, their glowing windows like watchful eyes. Every flickering candle seems to listen. Every rustling branch seems to whisper. And for a fleeting moment, you could swear the air itself remembers. You, not your face or your name, but the part of you that once belonged to fire and night. In some places, the people still gather for this hour. They light single flames on riverbanks or thresholds. They speak the names of their dead aloud, not in mourning, but in recognition. It is said that to name the departed is to remind them they are still part of the story. To forget them is to close the door entirely. The veil, you see, is not just between the living and the dead. It lies between memory and forgetting, between the past we honor and the past we abandon. Each Halloween, that veil breathes, swelling and sighing like a sleeping creature that will never truly die. Think of all the centuries layered in this single night, the druids and their sacred fires, the Roman feasts of apples and harvest, the Christian prayers for wandering souls, the laughter of children with paper masks and plastic swords, all of it folds together here at the turning of the year, woven tighter than smoke around a flame. This is how humanity remembers, not with books, but with ritual, not with certainty, but with rhythm. Every year the same fire, the same chill, the same impulse to light something against the dark. It is our oldest inheritance. A candle gutters beside you. The flame bends, elongates, then steadies again. You watch the light dance inside the wax. A fragile sun, breathing. Perhaps that's what the ancients meant by thin walls. Not barriers breaking, but breaths aligning. Ours and theirs. When your heartbeat matches the flicker of the flame, when the room feels both empty and full, you begin to understand what they knew. The veil is not a curtain to cross. It is a rhythm to listen to. In some forgotten field, a stone circle still stands. Moss climbs over its edges. No one prays there now, but on nights like this, fog gathers between the stones, as if answering an unspoken call. Somewhere else, a church bell tolls 12, and the sound rolls across empty roads, folding into the hum of streetlights, into the rustle of trees, into the quiet pulse of the earth. Turning again. The sound is not a warning, it's a reminder. The night is not gone. It only changes shape. Inside the house, a pumpkin candle burns low. Its grin has softened, wax pooling around its teeth. The scent of smoke and sugar mingles with the air, a perfume older than language. You could almost imagine that every scent, every whisper, every flicker of flame is the world remembering itself. Halloween, after all, is not a holiday of endings. It is a night of return, the moment when the invisible world draws close, not to frighten, but to remind. You sit by the window watching the last ember glow. Outside, a thin mist creeps across the ground, curling around gravestones, porches, and fences. In that silver veil, you think you see movement. A flicker, a shimmer, a shape almost human, almost memory. It pauses, as if listening for your breath, and for a heartbeat. The distance between the living and the gone feels no wider than a whisper. Then, as the candle fades, the mist thins, the world exhales, and everything grows still again. Halloween waits, not in the sky, not in the ground, but in the pause between. It waits in the silence after laughter, in the dark behind the last door closed, in the heartbeat between candlelight and shadow. It waits, patient, gentle, remembering, because it knows we will return. Next year, and the next after that. To light our small fires against the dark, to wear the masks, to tell the stories, to call the names. Each year, the same breath through the veil. Each year, the same rhythm beneath the bones of time. The flame finally dies, but its warmth lingers. Outside, the wind carries the faintest echo. A child's laughter, a whispered name, a sigh that could belong to anyone or everyone. The year turns once more. The veil thins and then thickens again, like lungs filling and emptying. And somewhere in that breath, between the worlds, between the moments, Halloween waits, listening, alive. The veil still breathes.